How's everybody doing?
Yeah, good. Cheers, mate.
How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing fine, Fran. How are you?
Really good. I'm happy to have you here today.
Thank you. Thanks both you, Fran and Darren. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome, man.
It's a pleasure, man. I really like your work, man. It's amazing. I like the way you write, and I've told you this before. Your newsletter is absolutely impressive.
Thank you. You have always been like a supporter, and I think one of the every time I'm like, I'm like, okay, you know what, it's getting too much to write. I go back to some of your comments on my post, or you getting into my DMs and telling me how great it is. Always works. Thanks for those words of encouragement.
I'm glad, man. Yeah, your writing is amazing. We'll just give it a few minutes for people to join.
Sure. Yeah.
In the meanwhile, just knowing, hi Simon, how are you doing?
These LinkedIn lives are getting quite popular across the platform now. So I think we're just waiting for some more people to come in. I think Fran's just sorting out his connection as well. Right, to everyone listening, Fran's been having a bit of issues connecting via his desktop today, so he's just trying to fix his connection through his mobile. Chris, while we're waiting, how long have you been writing?
Oh, I've been writing since I'm 16. Since I've been 16. It started with a bit of poetry, stories, short stories, getting published in the school magazine. And yeah, then that started the journey. Then through college, the irony is, though I'm an engineer by education, I'm a writer by profession. And yeah, then I started with when it came to taking up a serious job, I started with academic editing, which then went on to doing a lot of ghostwriting for researchers, especially researchers from countries where English was a second language, which led me to getting a lot of actual novelists who were hiring ghostwriters who wanted research assistants, and that's
Yeah.
how the journey began. So far, over 13 years, I have written across 33 books as a ghostwriter. I have written around 70 odd research papers, working with authors and researchers, of course. And now I'm on LinkedIn,
So
writing
you're,
shorter stories. Yeah.
so you're a qualified engineer at the moment.
Yeah.
That's a massive change of direction there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see
Yes.
Fran's trying to connect again now.
Okay, I think I'm in this time.
There you go, dude. We
I
can
don't know
hear.
what's going on, but I think it's not just us because we're not even having enough people, and I suppose people are getting trouble to get in as well. I mean, I've tried 3 different devices, and LinkedIn keeps kicking me out of the event. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, we can try them, mate. If anyone's listening, just put a thumbs up if you've had any issues connecting today.
I would also imagine that people listening wouldn't go through the trouble that I've had trying 3 different devices just to get in. You see, Abu is saying that he had some issues as well.
Yeah, it might be LinkedIn itself then, mate.
Disturbing. Absolutely disturbing. All right, let's kick this into gear. How's everybody doing today?
Yeah, we're good, man. We just had a quick chat with Chris to see how long he's been writing. So we've just got a bit of information from him there, but we'll crack on from the start, mate.
All right, cool. So how long have you been writing, Chris?
I've been, I think, for odd 13 years now.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, it's visible through your work. And for those listening, just before we even start, if you haven't subscribed to Chris's newsletter, just go ahead and do it because it's amazing tips on storytelling, and his writing is something to really enjoy, at least once a week, I'd say. All right, so I'm just going to give us a little bit of an introduction. First and foremost, as always, if you haven't been with us before, the priority is always to have a conversation with everybody. So if you have anything to say, questions, or just comments, just let us know. Raise your hand, leave your hands up, and we'll bring you up on stage. We're having quite a few issues with the connection today, so hopefully LinkedIn will not kick me out again, as it's done a few times. And this time I'll let Chris introduce himself. I know he's written quite a few books as a ghostwriter, and he's got some incredible experience on storytelling, which is our main subject here is mastering LinkedIn client attraction. And last week we had content strategy, and there's nothing more important in content than storytelling to actually attract prospects and turn them into clients to get that relationship built at scale. So, Chris, you want to give us a bit of an introduction of who you are and why you are qualified to talk to us about storytelling? Despite, I mean, I know why you're qualified because I've read your words, but go ahead, please.
Sure. So I am Christopher Freitas and I am from India. And I've been, as I said, I've been writing for 16 years now. Across that tenure, I've written around 30, ghostwritten 33 novels and an odd number of research papers. These authors were basically from countries where English was a second language and also from countries in Europe. Currently, I, of course, have my own personal brand on LinkedIn. And I also work as a brand consultant for SaaS companies and content creators, helping them with story driven content. And as Fran said, I have my own newsletter called the Story Engine. It's published once a week on a Saturday. And if you're looking for something to have, to read while drinking a nice cup of tea or
Thank you, Chris. All right. So I'm going to give a bit of an introduction as to what we do in these events. And basically, we try to connect attracting clients, so inbound marketing, and all the important aspects from this activity, right? So everybody here is looking to get more clients to their business, and we focus a lot on the inbound part. Darren and I have been doing some incredible work. We've built some systems that just attract leads from the content that he writes. I'm hoping to even start some storytelling into Darren's content, but that's going to be the next level, I suppose. What do you say about that, Darren? Would you like to have some storytelling in your content?
Yeah, it's something that I think I need to work on myself, because I'm only just starting to get into writing the last month or two, because obviously we use Arsam for content, and I've got my partner who's a copywriter for all our profiles, but it's definitely something I need to work on.
Yeah, the thing about storytelling, and I would like Chris to tell us about this, what his experience is on this. Like, Chris, have you written books for clients with the intention of building credibility or specifically for sale?
Absolutely. So I wouldn't say books, but then there have been research papers that I've written where you do this entire endeavor to get a grant for your research. And yeah, please.
Would you use storytelling there?
Yes. Like, I believe there is no part of marketing where storytelling cannot be used. Right? Anything, because first of all, it is a bit of emotional core that if you resonate with something emotionally, you're more likely to make a logical decision which justifies the emotions, not the other way around.
You say that you make a logical decision justified with emotions, or the other way around?
I'm saying it the other way. I'm saying that you have already made an emotional decision, like you resonate with it,
and
then you justify the logic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so as humans, we make most of our decisions from the emotional side, and then we attempt to justify, especially when it's purchases, right? And when we connect with something, and stories connect with us like nothing else, that's when we're going to trust, especially when it's a person. That's why everybody's talking about personal branding on LinkedIn, because
yes,
that's what we do. We connect with people, not with businesses, right? All right. So there's three major pillars to this whole issue of mastering LinkedIn, of LinkedIn client attraction. LinkedIn is just a platform. It's a platform where we distribute content and we network with other people. For me, that's the purpose of LinkedIn. The centerpiece of this work is your profile. So as I see it, there are three major steps that we need to take on LinkedIn. One, get someone to visit our profile. Two, get someone from our profile to an email list. Most of the times it can be other things, but outside of the platform, to a place where we control, where we can do our marketing independently of the platform. The way we started this event is a great example. We cannot depend on a platform like this, as it's visible that I'm hosting the event and they didn't even let me join. So so an email list is usually the centerpiece of the heart of every business. So everything feeds towards the email list. Every distribution platform, every type of publishing that we do should feed into the email list, and from there we feed. We sell, we nurture our leads, we keep doing the work, right? So as I said, the first number one activity is to move people to our profile on LinkedIn. The profile is what's going to do the next step, moving them outside of the platform. So before we go into the part where we move people and how we move people into our profile. Darren, what type of profile, how do we make a profile that actually leads to the next step, to our next logical step, which in my opinion should most of the times be the email list. But let's say even if it's booking a call directly, which I think it's a bit precipitated, but let's say it is, how do we create a good profile that when people visit, and I don't know how many visits you guys have on your profile, but that's that should be your main objective on LinkedIn, is to get people to visit your profile. Right now, currently, and I started posting again on February, and I have over 900 visits on my profile in the past 90 days. So that's the objective, get visits. From there, the next step. Darren, how do we get people to take the next step? What kind of profile do we need?
Well, I think it's important to note that you've got to be driving the right kind of traffic for your offer. I say it every time, like, you can't be marketing a Ford and then try and sell a Lamborghini, because you've got the wrong traffic that's going to your profile. But as long as you're getting that right traffic and your content aligned with your offer and your target audience, then the next part is obviously when they come to the profile, the biggest part of that profile is the banner. So it's understanding that you've got to have some kind of headline in that banner, whether it's a statement or a question, some kind of social proof, depending on what you're going to use there, but then have a real clear call to action. They've recently moved, or they're in the process of moving, the about section above the featured section, which I think personally is a bad move. But are
they going to move that for creators as well? Sorry, Darren.
I don't know, mate. So
at the moment,
yeah, we're just waiting to see. We're waiting to see what they're doing with. So I've got the course, I've got the profile course, but I can't update the course yet because I want to see what updates LinkedIn's doing before I do it. So we just got to kind of wait over the next couple of months to see where LinkedIn goes with it.
Yeah, because currently the about section has moved up for normal profiles, but for creator profiles it's still under.
Yeah. Well, we saw yesterday, didn't we, mate? Even with the custom link under your name on your posts, like for some people have got it, some people haven't. So they're still doing updates and changes at the minute. So it's just a case of waiting to see where they go with it before we can fine tune what we're doing. But what we're looking at is obviously a clear headline statement, something to grab the attention at the top, and don't get cocky or clever with the copy. Be very clear what you do and who you do it for. I went through a lot of profiles a couple of days ago, especially like female fitness coaches, and their profile was a mess, and there was no clear call to action, no clear offer, didn't show who they work with or anything. So they're not going to be converting any kind of traffic. But in the banner, then we put a call to action, and that call to action. Some people put like hit the notification bell, but the problem with that is that's not visible until you follow. So you may as well say follow, then hit the bell. But then it's not really giving anybody a direction to go for any kind of conversion or lead. So what we tend to do with our banners is we always say go to the featured section. Like always point people to the featured section, because then you can update that as you need to. And then with that, then you can guide them to either booking a call, joining a newsletter, whatever it be, or send them to a website, or whatever you need them to do. That's where you want to do the action from that point to get them away from LinkedIn.
Right, I like it. There's one thing that people usually assume, and I think even the first time I spoke to you, you told me something of the sort, like, but they will know where to go. You remember that?
Yeah.
It's never assumed that your prospect knows where to go, and even if they could, and they can find out, but the idea here is you want the person to get to where you want them to get with the least friction possible. If they have to think twice, okay, what do I need to do next? If they have to answer this question themselves, it's because you're not answering it yourself. Then it means they will probably choose someone else who's answering that question for them. It's all about calories and brain power. So if a person can do it with less friction, they will do it with less friction, not with more. I mean, that's human survival at play. That's how we everything we do is to save calories.
Yeah,
Alright,
something
so
something I'll add to that, Fran. Sorry, mate.
Go ahead.
Yeah, when we go through the featured section as well, we see it quite often where people put a description. If it's a link to an outside source, whether it be a website or anything, people put a description on that featured section link. But the problem is then you're adding an extra click in the process. So you're obviously going from clicking that, then it'll open another window, then you read the description, then you've got to go visit the link. So by removing the description completely, as soon as you click that featured section thumbnail, it will automatically take you straight to that link without a route in between. So it's important that if you're trying to get people into like booking a call, going to newsletter or anything like that, it's important to remove the description on that featured section in order to remove that extra click.
Yeah, most people don't know that. So there's three things to fill up. So you have the thumbnail, then you have the title when you're creating a link in the featured section. You have the title, you have the thumbnail, and then the description. If you leave the description empty, the link will work with one click. If you fill up the description, it will pop up. It will just zoom in on the photo, and you'll have to click on view. You'll lose a lot of website visits or whatever you want to take them to with that one. All right, so now we have the profile handled. That's how you create, how you move people from your profile to the next step. And now, of course, Darren can talk to us as well about how to get your profile discovered on searches, on Google searches, on LinkedIn searches. We'll leave that for later. Now, I would like to get Christopher telling us how can a story not only connect with your audience, but like by using stories in your posts, how can you connect with your audience and then make them want to visit your profile?
Just to add to the profile bit, this is how I look at it from the storytelling perspective. Like when a prospect comes to my profile, there are three questions they have. One is who, what, how, right? And I believe all of these are opportunities for you to write your origin story. Now, I'm pretty sure all of us are origin story. We know the Batman origin story, and if you're a Marvel super fan, you know the Superman origin story. Your profile is the exact place where you can start writing your origin story, especially in the about section. But as Darren and Fran, said that the very first thing says the banner. Always believe your banner should have the title to your story, which basically means what you do for your clients, or for the service that you have, or the product you have, or what you can do for your clients, which becomes the hook of the story. And that leads to the about section, where you talk about what exactly you do. Now with my about section, since I'm a storyteller, I've gone the very fiction way and fictionalize the entire thing that I do for my clients using a story, using a proper superhero origin story. Fran, could you repeat the rest of your question, please?
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I meant, all right, now we're in the feed, and I want you to guide us on how to use the story part of it to not only connect with the audience who's reading your post. Now, okay, they found you in the feed. So guide us through all the steps. Like, they find you in the feed. Why will they read your post? How is the story going to help them read your post? How is the story going to connect with them on an emotional level, and then get them to take the next step, the action to visit your profile?
Okay. So I think the crux of the entire story, the very first thing that when you write a story about anything, should be, what do you want to tell? Okay, what do you want to tell your clients? Do you want to talk about your service? Do you want to hint at your service? Do you want to talk about yourself? For example, when I talk about when I do personal stories, or when I just do stories on LinkedIn, what I'm trying to do over there is show my expertise in storytelling, right? So now imagine you're going through a feed. You're going through your feed, LinkedIn feed. and you are there for whatever reasons. You are there to engage before your post goes live, or you are just there hanging out, browsing freely. The very first thing that catches your attention would be a headline. There is no, this cannot be emphasized enough. The headline of your story matters a lot. It's the hook.
You mean the
Now,
hook, right? What
yeah,
people
yeah,
here on LinkedIn call the hook. Yeah.
hook, exactly. Yeah, the hook, which is also the title of your story, even if from the storytelling perspective, the hook. Now, when I write a story, I prefer doing one thing. If you've been through my profile, Fran could always tell you. My hook is basically what's happening right in the middle of the story. That increases the drama. That also tells your mind, the human mind goes, okay. Like for example, if I start a story that says, I had a gun in my mouth, I'm pretty sure out of 25 people listening over there, at least 20 of them will be like, okay, you know what? I want to know what happened. You have a lot of questions in your head where, okay, how did that happen? What's going to happen? What led him this? You also have other questions like, why is this post on LinkedIn? Right? So your hook matters the most. Now, when it comes to the message of your story, for example, as I said, I'm writing this post to show off or to show the expertise that I have with storytelling. Now, in this aspect, what I try to do is for example, if I will try to emphasize or I will try to ensure that I have a storytelling framework that's at play. So usually this is how I do my entire strategy. What I do is the first post of the week is it's just a personal story. It could be anything. It could just be about how I got into this journey or how the story is written. The second post is about what the newsletter for the week would be. And the third is a direct promotion. So the first one gives a glimpse of what is going to be in the newsletters. For example, this week, I'm talking about how you can write video content. Like if you're doing video content, what the script should be, and how do you write a proper script with a storytelling script and everything. So the very first post today spoke about video in general, like how I as a person go through videos, or how I as a person, like if there is a video that's too long and it does not get my attention the first 10 seconds, I'm going to skip it. And in this aspect, what I do is I'll write a story. The very first thing would be a beginning, like scrolling through LinkedIn. The second would be the actual problem, like okay, I got bored while going through this video. At the 10-second mark, I left this video, and then I'll discuss the problem. The problem would be because it could be that the hook was not interesting. It could be that it was just a narration of a LinkedIn post. And the fourth would be me plugging any kind of solution that I want. In my case, it's usually subscribing a newsletter. So I always believe, like every story structure, even a LinkedIn post should be divided into three parts. The first is the hook, the second is where the action happens, and the third is when you give a resolution. Now, with a resolution is where exactly, like you do not give a complete solution. I always ensure my stories do not have a full and final end. I always want my readers, one is to think what happened. I want the story to remain. I want them to think about the story, which it does, because the more they think about you, the more likely they are to purchase or to hire you when they come across that problem that they face, that you're talking about.
So you leave some curiosity even at the end of the story.
Yes. If like most of my stories are open ended, I do not like. I know it's very contrary to copywriting advice, where you tell the reader exactly what you want to do. But especially for my high level post, basically the post where I'm at the top of the funnel post, I'm not aiming to tell reader what to do. I'm trying to ensure that I'm at the top of their mind. So every time someone thinks storytelling, I want them to think of me.
Yeah. I understand what you mean.
And that is only going to happen if I'm lingering in there through my content. So exactly
Yeah.
when they are like ready to face, like whenever, like as I said, it's not, I mean, we have all experienced this. The sale doesn't happen just because you're writing content for it. Correct. What you do out there is you are trying, like you are there and you're present. And then when your prospect is ready or is convinced that okay, you can solve the problem, or they are convinced that they have a problem, and if at that moment they can think of you to fix it, then your marketing is working.
Yeah, if you're writing for the top of the funnel, then your objective is to create awareness, not
Yes,
specifically to
yes,
generate a sale.
exactly, yeah. So I believe, as per depending on what kind of content you're writing, the kind of story you tell differs. Top of the funnel could mostly be personal stories, could mostly be just showcasing your skill. The second is where I do deviate away from storytelling and move towards copywriting, because that's exactly where you're actually trying to solve a problem. But even in there, as I say, there are storytelling structures that I always hold on to. And I tell you why. Because when you're writing on a social media platform, you are competing for attention. You cannot be like, I'm going to write a 600 word story where I'm going to showcase my entire skill. No one is going to read
Yeah,
you.
of course. Yeah.
No one is going to read you. Yeah. Even if you're a renowned creator, people trust you, you have a very solid brand, no one is going to read a 600 word story on LinkedIn.
No, it's all about mindset, and I tell this to people a lot. You have to understand, and that's where most of my work comes from. People think that they can get everything done on LinkedIn, like so they can get the sale done on LinkedIn, but that's
True.
not how it works. LinkedIn is a social platform, and nobody is going on
Yes.
LinkedIn to buy, and very few people are with the mentality of buying. Plus, you're competing with everybody on the feed. When you are scrolling your feed, there's like if for a moment you lose me, you lose my attention, then I just my if I'm on a mobile phone, my thumb just keeps scrolling, and I get to the next post, and you're gone, instantly
True.
gone. Now, if I move you to my email list, and now you're reading an email of mine, for example, then that's me and you, nobody else. Now the
Absolutely.
mindset's completely different, and most people actually do read emails. Obviously, you still need to hook them in and keep their attention. Subject lines are huge, but we're talking about, good emails. And Darren knows, because I've written plenty of emails for him. It's good emails can get up to 50% open rate.
True. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not like here that a few people see, and we judge this a lot by impressions. Like I have 1,000 impressions in a post, but 1,000 impressions, out of those 1,000 impressions, how many people actually read your post?
True.
And like, for example, I have 2,000 followers. Out of 2,000 followers, how many actually read one of my posts? Well, we're talking about not even a 10%, of each of my posts. Plus, the attention, the mindset with which they read it is completely different than somewhere else. So we always have to keep in mind where we are and where the person is reading us. And if they're reading us on LinkedIn, and that's why we see that generic advice, just people don't read, they skim, yes, on social media. And even there, if you can get their attention, if you know how to draw them in, you can get their attention. And yesterday I saw Jason Vanna, who is one of my favorite creators here on LinkedIn. He published a PDF with 72 pages. And this guy loves to challenge the norm as well. Like 72 pages, and I promise you, a lot of people read those 72 pages. So it's possible. Obviously, you can't abuse people's
Yeah,
attention.
but
Go
yeah,
ahead.
just to interrupt, but then with the carousel, like you get this result, especially if they are more visually enticing. I don't think you'll get the same kind of attention if you do just a wall of text.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Carousels in general.
it's the people's mindset. It's
Yeah.
how they are feeling right now. What
True.
that's one of the most important things to keep in mind every time we're publishing anything. I don't know if you go ahead and keep going with what you were explaining about how you create
Also to
your strategy. Yeah, go ahead.
So also to add to the newsletter thing, like when someone subscribes to their newsletter, you're not fighting for attention. Now you're thinking about retaining the attention. So your approach to that kind of content differs. So because basically when someone subscribes to your newsletter, they know they have already established, you have already established it in their mind that, okay, this is, you are good at this, you are pro at this, and now therefore going to deliver value. And also with the restrictions, like my newsletters can go from 600 to around 1800 words, but the aim is not, and it does not bother me, because the aim is to give them value. Also at the same time, in my career so far, I have realized the length of the newsletter is not, the length of an article is not a problem. Actually, the problem is if while reading the reader feels fatigue. There could be instances
Exactly.
where you read a 1,000 word article and you're like, oh, this was easy. right? It could become like, oh, this was easy, this did not feel like a 1,000 word article. That's because the comprehension level, the way of writing is interesting. The comprehension level is as per reader comprehension. It's easy to read, it's easy to digest. At the same time, a 200 word post which is full of technicalities, where you have to have you're just scratching your head at all times, can be very tedious to read. So when it comes to the length of the article, it is not about how many words, it is about how easy you make it for your reader to read.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to take this opportunity to just highlight, if anybody wants to ask anything or speak about this, want to know anything about storytelling, or even the how storytelling plays a role in client attraction, or anything about profiles or client attraction on LinkedIn, just raise your hand and live it up, because if you then put it down, I can't. We miss you. Can't pull you up to the stage. All right. So we have Mustafa. Do you wanna conclude your thoughts, Chris, or can I bring Mustafa up?
Oh yeah, you can bring Mustafa.
All right. Hello, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me on. The question I have is related to mindness, like, because I do mostly what Christopher has just said, like start the post, especially like storytelling posts from like the middle of the story, and then we create curiosity and stuff. However, with how LinkedIn is in terms of making sure content, especially I'm using words like porn and stuff, and LinkedIn does its best to restrict the content. So how do I go about like making impact in my storytelling, as in like bring in the right kind of people and getting inbound leads and stuff.
All right. So you think that the wording, obviously that's what you do. So you help men overcome porn addiction. You think that specific wording is hindering your reach?
Could be like I like, because I've tested it out. I've tested where I don't use the word, and when I do use it, sometimes I get like double-digit impressions, not even like two-digit impressions. So I was wondering. So that's one, obviously, but is there a way to spread the message and deliver the message in a way that people say, okay, this guy is the authority in his space, I might reach out to him, and
Yeah,
basically build that trust with the people reading.
yeah. If I can take this from.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, so I do agree. There are certain words which don't work on LinkedIn. Like I've tried these certain negative words, they give you very low traction. But Safaya, like I would ask you a question, right? Okay, I think this is how you can go about it. When you're trying to, I believe your entire thing is to help men get rid of porn addiction, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because like
Exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
wondering, like, do I talk about more about the pain, or do I talk more about the transformation? So what kind of balance do I
Okay.
need to
So
bring into the content?
so just answer a few questions for me. So one would be like, okay, now we know for an example a porn addiction, but what is the end result you're trying to change? Like I would suggest like you go after that. For example, when it comes to porn addiction, the entire thing is about at the end of it, or when you're addicted to porn, there are certain low feelings, which is dejection, loneliness, whatever. You can you just chip in over here and give me these emotions that people go through.
Yeah,
If you
obviously
once
it's obviously, like you just mentioned, it's low self-esteem and
yeah, yeah,
feeling unworthy and so those are obviously the feelings, and the outcomes are like I used to bring in the outcomes of like improved relationships, but now I'm thinking like,
mm-hmm.
can I like bring in another angle, because relationships, helping men with their relationship is not really my kind of thing. So I'm
True.
wondering like what other outcomes can be like brought up.
So in such cases, I would ask you to, weave your story around the desires, about the feelings. Like, for example, as I said, with porn addiction comes dejection, comes loneliness, depression, and everything, right? So you write more about the feeling, right? The moment, because as I said, storytelling is always about emotions. So if you talk about the desires, unwanted desires, or the unwanted feelings that people feel, that people have, and how you can help them get to the positive feelings they would. So if you write a story around it, there will be a lot of instances where you do not have to use the word porn. Of course, you cannot write an entire, you cannot keep on writing about it without mentioning it, right? Because that is your purpose, that is the purpose of your personal brand. And LinkedIn does have that shortcoming. So I would suggest that if your 80% of your post should be where you're talking about mapping the entire post towards the desire that someone feels, or the kind of feelings they have after the event, and then how you help them elevate themselves to a certain thing. So if you map that journey through your posts, through your stories, I don't think you'll face problems with LinkedIn as much. Also, I think more and more people, men, will relate. Also, this is something which is very private. So I don't think engagement should be you should follow.
because people don't want to show they're
Exactly.
addicted to it. So
Yeah.
most
So,
of
but if you're
the
getting,
leads those leads that have come in have either
Hmm,
directly booked a call or DM me
yeah.
from
So
a second account.
yeah. So in such case, I think impressions is something that you should really work on. So therefore,
Guys,
you have to
if
get
you
along. Yeah.
if you just let me get in here for a second, I would like to add to Mustafa's question, asking you something, Chris.
Yeah.
So we can a big part of storytelling is to make people envision a situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you can make a person envision that they are in a situation without actually mentioning those words, right? So you
True.
can
True.
build into, how would you build into that? Like make someone feel that they are in that specific situation and that they are feeling those feelings without actually saying you're watching porn, like could you just,
Mm-hmm.
are you able to give us some examples of that? Yeah, I know it's a
Mm-hmm.
bit under pressure, but
Okay. Let me try. Let me try. So the feeling that we would look for, like, to help them ensure that, like, okay, with porn, like, as I think about it, one would be the lack of social circle, but there's kind of an addiction, right? So what I would do, of course, like, I would always talk about, I would write a story about how loneliness can kill. It could be basically a very metaphorical story between me and my shadow,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
A very metaphorical story between me and my shadow. That's basically being me and my loneliness, and we both hanging out together, especially when it's dark outside, which will be another metaphor for when you're using it as a metaphor for the porn addiction. And the moment the sun comes in, that basically would be your after you're done the act, and with the realization that this is not what you want to do, this is not that the addiction is ruining it, even your shadow leaving you. So that would talk to the vulnerability of you facing of you being in a public this, or you judging yourself. So on the top of my mind, this is some of the angles I would work with. But as you see, all of them are towards desires and emotions. Now, I can think that, of course, because certain years of experience have come into play. But I think everyone should start somewhere or the other. If you can map the desire to the story you're telling, or the emotions to the story you want to tell, stories are easy to make from there on.
All right. From my side, I'm going to give you as well a few tips, but I'm going to actually let Darren do it because it's something we've been working on recently together. It's actually creating a dream client avatar, or what some people call it, the ideal client profile, the ICP. I don't like the idea of the ICP, the naming, and especially because most people talk about it here, but they don't understand what it is. So the way I define a dream client avatar is first you start from a client of yours that you've had, if you've had clients on. So you start from someone that you really enjoyed working with, like your favorite client ever, and you start, it's easier to envision. But what we're doing here is creating and the word avatar for me, it helps me with this because of the movie Avatar, for example. What we're creating is an imaginary person that every time we write to them, we are writing to that person specifically. Every time we create a post, every time we do any marketing activity at all, we are addressing this specific person. The way I define a dream client avatar, and I have a dream client avatar worksheet. If you guys want, just reach out and I'll get it for you. And I would like Darren's perspective because he's been doing this work with me recently, And how, Darren, the dream client avatar, how did it help you like actually understand the person who you're addressing, and how do you address them now? Because now you don't address them like you are now talking to coaches. They are your client. They are your ideal client. But it's not just coaches, is it? It's one specific coach. It's one specific person that you created, but you're not telling them, hey, so coaches, I help you get clients. There's a lot of things that you're talking about, and those things are defined in the dream client avatar. And there's their pain points, their desires, all of this. Do you want to talk to us on this, Darren?
Yeah, so when I'll quickly roll back because to give people an idea of how this all came about. So you had been going on at me for some time to sort out my ICP, and I didn't do it. I was just putting it off because we were targeting business owners in general, and I didn't really feel that there was a need to do an ICP. And I recently watched a LinkedIn Live with Chris Do, and he was talking about if you want to get the most up-to-date data on your client pain points, go back through all your recent clients and ask them, why did you choose to work with me? You know, what was your challenges? Why, you know, what was the reason for getting in touch, and why did you pay for my services? And the reason it's important to ask them then is because you get really clear data, not just like a Google search on pain points. And as I was doing that, I realized that most of our clients are coaches. They're coaches in different industries. So it made sense for me then to start thinking, okay, Fran's going on at me about doing an ICP, you know, an avatar. Christo's telling me to find pain points, and it turns out that most people that use us are coaches. So at that point then I started looking, okay, we need to niche down into coaches rather than business owners. And then when I started doing that, the one we used at one of my clients called James Rose as an example, he was a coach that we worked with. And we were able to drill down then, even as far, this is the difference when you go for like just business owners, which is very, very broad, into coaches. It enabled us then to say, right, okay, go into something like Gemini, which is AI, find the top 10 books that coaches read, then use the AI then to go into those books and say, what are the main pain points and desires of coaches who are reading these books, and what is that book delivering on in terms of the content? And then that gave us a huge list of pain points, desires, and everything that our coaches are looking to get into. But when you said a minute ago, Fran, you know, don't just tell people that you're going to get them more leads. Like the leads is an effect of cause. So leads comes from like establishing authority, establishing credibility, building trust, you know, having clarity on your offer, and all these things here take place before you get more clients. Right now, when people just say, oh yeah, we can get you more clients, it's 9 times out of 10 it's bullshit, because if they're not asking about what is your offer, are you clear, you know, do you know where you're going, do you know who you're targeting, until you're clear on all of that, the leads aren't going to come. Now, the difference that has made having an ICP, so now I know coaching is still quite broad, and we will niche down further at some point over the next 12 months. But what it's enabled us to do now is focus our content on coaches, so we can address coaches in general as a target. We can then start talking about pain points within our content. And what it's also enabled me to do then is focus on only connecting with ICPs, so ideal clients, rather than connecting across the board. So I only work now with coaches in the US and UK, and that is it. So what it's enabled me to do now is to fine tune who I'm connecting with, my target audience, my content, and everything like that. But it's also made it very easy now to have conversations with people, because when you're very broad, you're connecting with too many people to have an understanding of what they do and what they're likely to need. So this is what, you know, all these different things now, purely by having an ICP, has made a massive difference to content, engagement, people I connect with, my conversations, and my conversion.
Thank you, Darren. That's really good. That's more or less what I was looking for. More or less, no, that's exactly what I was looking for. It's your experience with this, because for me, I speak from from an experience side of it, and it's different. But yes, your dream client avatar or your ICP or whatever you want to call it, people just they say, I work with founders. Yeah, no, just grab a proper dream client avatar or ideal client worksheet, and actually define, give this person a name, give this person a face if you have to. Ask AI or Google a photo just to place on it. actually create a person. So then every time you're doing anything and you're creating a post, you are writing to this person. And let me put it this way. If I say just coaches, or if I say to run to everybody on this call, you're listening to what I'm saying, please, this is how you create a dream client avatar. Now if I actually address and I say, Mustafa, you have to talk to people specifically about their pain points, what are they feeling, what's hurting them right now, but I'm using your name. So when I'm addressing you specifically, this, you know that I'm talking to you. If I'm talking to everybody on this call, and this is already quite specific, it's people don't connect with the messages as much. If I use your name, you're straight away you're paying attention to what I'm saying, right? Because I'm talking to you. So it's the same thing when you have an avatar and you're addressing that specific avatar. Everybody who has similar traits will connect with that message. Right. So I don't know. I think you're having problem with the call, Mustafa. I don't know if you've heard, but I hope that helped. Instead of actually using the problem at hand, use all the pain points that the problem is generating. I think he's not here anymore.
Yeah, it's okay. It'll be recorded anyway, mate.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions on storytelling or client attraction or anything at all? All right. In that case, we're going to move to a different subject. So I spoke to Christopher before. Well, not a different subject, but before I asked Christopher, and he explained that he likes to start a story in the middle, so in the action, right? If you pay attention, most Hollywood movies actually do start like this. They start with big explosions and fights and all of this, and this is the way to actually grab attention. So they get our attention with all the nuts and the craziness, and this is just one of the techniques to grab attention. Chris, do you want to share with us different techniques to just the initial part to grab attention? So one is starting from the action. There will be curiosity. There will be different types of techniques that you have in storytelling. Do you wanna share with us a few?
Yeah. So when it comes to storytelling, like as I said, I prefer using the middle of the action hooks. The very first thing that you have to make sure with your hook is that it makes your reader curious. It could also, my second go-to option is to always ask a question. If you ask a question which is directly related to, like for example, I start my post, well, if I'm writing about like your post, for example, I spoke about the video content. My post will start with a question: are you skipping videos? Are you scrolling through videos? Are you skipping videos at the midpoint and leaving? So that could be a question that I'll ask. That would be the other thing. But when it comes to storytelling on LinkedIn or any social media platforms, as I say, because the attention span is less, so you do not have the liberty to go into descriptions. So you have to ensure that you tighten your story. You go through storytelling structures. Now, my favorite one, especially, is the hero's journey, which I think you should use, especially when you're trying to do personal stories. Now, if you look at the story, the hero's journey is 12 stages. We won't go through all the 12 stages, but I'll just break it down into very broad ones. The first is the departure. Basically, here where you talk about is what is the initial stage, like who you are, what you are. For example, we can take, for example, my case. So if I'm writing a post on writer's block, like how I suffer from writer's block and how I found a cure for it. So for example, I'll start with the very original state, which is my ordinary state, which is basically I am a writer. I write so and so, the stories and everything, blah, 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 and everything. Then comes in the initiation stage where I actually put the problem being the writer's block. Okay? And then that starts the journey. Once the journey is done, you talk about the return, which is basically whatever you have learned that comes back. Now you will see that this is very similar to the 3-act structure. It is, but the difference between hero's journey and a 3-act structure is like when you write a hero's journey, you're talking about internal change. Here you're not trying to show what you've done, you're not trying to sell anything, you're not trying to showcase the skill set that you acquired to go to conquer writer's block. What you're trying to say is the internal changes, the change in attitude, the change in approach, the change in how you go around a problem. All these things are all about internal changes that you talk about. So when you're doing a personal story, when you're trying to write about your victories, or you're trying to write about a experience that where you learned something, so you can always go for the hero's journey. Because here the thing is, with personal stories, I see a lot of people missing their mark is because it turns into a gloat, right? It turns into, oh, I am the hero. Oh, it turns into, I did this and I still survived, which I don't believe works very well with the audience out there. They want to see you vulnerable, but they don't want you to make a mockery of the vulnerability, right? They don't want, like, okay, you just for the sake of showing yourself as a hero, you just made up something, and it had no practical effect on you, and you made it out. That's it. That story does not resonate with anyone. In my opinion, people do not resonate with successful people as much. That's aspirational. They want to be that people, but they go more like, okay, this person has been through the same thing as I have. Yeah,
Chris, would you mind me if I interrupt you there? Because I think that you're touching on a very important point there. I think most
yeah,
people struggle with storytelling for the exact same reason that they think that storytelling needs to be something fantastic and amazing. Whilst most
Mhm.
actually the storytelling that works in marketing is the one that connects with the audience. So for it to connect with the audience, it's not going to be something fantastic. It's usually the
True.
day-to-day things and the way we look at them and describe them, isn't it?
Mhm. Yeah, excellent. Exactly. See, as I think when we started, Fran or Darren said the fact that companies don't sell anymore. Like a company, people buy from people, not from businesses, right? So with when you have personal brand in place, you're already solving for that thing, that you are putting yourself out and you're not talking from behind a company's name, right? Now to further elevate it, you need to act like a person. It's I mean, the irony that it's a personal brand, but you're not acting like a person. So in that case, as Fran said, you have to talk about your daily problems. You have to talk about what that made you feel. You when you say that you're going to do a personal story and you decide you're going to be vulnerable, the idea is not to show how you conquered it. That is given, that okay, you have conquered it. The idea is to show your journey, to show the negatives, to show the positives, and how sometimes not all stories have happy endings, right? Like for example, in the story that I said, right, regarding writer's block, I can, like, okay, eventually I have a system in place that helps me prevent writer's block, but there are instances that the system does not work, right? And that makes me, and I'm pretty sure there is, like, that tells my readers that okay, he has so many x years of experiences, and even he faces that issue. So I am just starting out. Oh, I just learned, this is not my core skill, I can still fix this. That is the kind of emotion I want to go for, because that resonates with my audience. And if they resonate with you, they will come back for more content.
Is there anybody here who wants to start writing stories, but actually struggles? And just give me a reaction. But actually struggles with knowing what to write about, and you think that storytelling needs to be something very complicated. And do you guys resonate with this? Do you feel like this is something that like that story? Do you feel storytelling is right up there and so hard for you to do? Whilst usually the best storytelling from my point of view is, and I'll get Christopher to talk on this. Well, I just did, but is just the daily little things. I mean, sometimes, and this is a story I read actually from Parker Worth, who's an amazing storyteller as well. He just described his fights with a cockroach. So it can be very simple. It's just the way that we describe it, the way that we put it out there. If you with these little things is what we can connect with the audience. Because why? If I describe that I flew an aircraft and I did some crazy maneuvers and the aircraft was on fire and I still managed to land the aircraft, yeah, you're gonna clap at me, but you're not gonna resonate because you've never been in a similar situation, right?
True.
But if I describe my fight with a cockroach, probably most of you here have had similar fights. What do you say on this, Christopher? Do you have anything to add?
I agree. I absolutely agree. Like as you said, like see the thing is you have storytelling is basically a narration. Like I'll give you this is a hack which I use. For example, you want to write about writer's block. Okay. So you sit down and you list everything that you experience or everything that you feel or everything that you have done so far, all of it on a page. Just write it down. All your pain, everything, feeling, desperation, all your cures, everything that you've tried. Right? Once you write that down, now you make it into a structure, give it a beginning, a middle, and the end. All right. Now, for example, the beginning could be anything like you staring your screen, okay, and that cursor being there, and that cursor blinking, and there's been 15 minutes past 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. That cursor is not moving. To a point of time, now yes, the story will telling bit comes into play. Now it's a very simple incident, right? It's just you sitting in front of the screen and getting frustrated and not being able to write anything because your brain is also like empty right now. Correct? So you go and then you add a bit of storytelling where you go like the more I sit over here, the more I see that cursor blinking, the more I feel that it is mocking me. The only thing I've done over here is that one line which actually makes it a story. Other than that, just a narration of what is happening.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. I love that. Yeah. It's just the cursor blinking. It's the description of what's happening that actually makes other people feel that feel that they were in the same situation, and that's what connects with an audience. That's what's going to make them feel like they know you, which is a big step before the sale. All right, we're going to be wrapping this up soon, but before we do, I just want to mention a few things. One, next week we're going to have the amazing Sandra Marcel with us, who's here as well listening. And I don't know if you want to say a few words, just raise your hand. I'll bring you up stage. Otherwise, you guys have to wait for next week. And if you know anything about Sandra, you'll be as looking forward to this as excited as I am. If you don't know, just click on her name and go visit her profile because her content is amazing. On this note, next week Friday, same time. Darren, you wanna give us some closing words?
No, I'm good, mate. Thanks. It's been good to speak to Chris. Always interested to hear more stories from more people that are coming on as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to next week.
Yeah, amazing. Obviously, I love storytelling. It's something that I'm passionate about. I've always been, and I'm trying to improve my storytelling because it's one of the most important things to master as a marketer. It's the next logical thing to know for me. And Chris, thank you so much for your views on story. It's been amazing. If anybody still wants to ask any questions on this or have any struggles that you have with storytelling, feel free to raise your hand and let's talk and let's get Chris's opinion on it. Otherwise, I think that's it. We'll wrap it up. There's one thing I'd like to mention as well. If there's anybody you'd like to see as a guest on these events with us, just open the page of the event and tag them in a comment, and we'll reach out and make that happen. Chris, do you want to say any final words?
Yes, Fran and Darren, thank you for inviting me. This was great, and you're building an amazing community over here.
Thank you so much for being here, Chris. It was really nice to hear your thoughts on storytelling. Thank you everybody for coming, and talk to you next week.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.